After following his employee home, a millionaire's incredible discovery revealed a hidden life. Nathaniel Graves sat in his high-rise office, eyes glued to the stack of proposals before him, the weight of accolades pressing heavily on his shoulders. Success, once a throbbing beacon, now felt like a lead weight. He had conquered the corporate world, yet as he sifted through the polished pages detailing marketing strategies, an unsettling emptiness gnawed at him. Financial prowess had never failed him, but this discontent simmered beneath a facade of confidence. It was during this restless night, a nagging tug in his gut pushing him to explore, that Nathaniel stumbled upon Clara Reyes's design work. In the shadows of his bustling firm, Clara's talent shone brighter than any project highlight. "This is remarkable," he mused, compelled, the thought blooming into an obsession. Intrigued, he found himself piecing together her life from fragments seen at work. Her quiet demeanor, the worn shoes she scuffed against the floor, laughter shared with colleagues that never quite reached her eyes. As the clock ticked, he grappled with the impulse to dig deeper into her world. That evening, Nathaniel's curiosity morphed into something more unsettling. As if pulled by an invisible thread, he followed Clara through the echoing streets of Chicago. Every step she took filled him with a mix of intrigue and dread. He stalked her like a ghost, veiled in the shadows, all while his thoughts spiraled. What propels a career-driven man to pry into the life of a mere employee? A cheap thrill? Compassion? An unsettling craving for connection? Before he knew it, she turned into a modest neighborhood, her small, dimly lit apartment looming in stark contrast to his bright, polished life. He stood there, tension coiling in his chest, grappling with the revelation of Clara's 2 children, laughter echoing from within her doors, a joy tinged with desperation. The more Nathaniel observed, the more he felt like an intruder on a fragile existence. He discovered her sacrifices, the endless grind as a single mother, navigating the labyrinth of bills and chores while her true artistic aspirations remained unfulfilled. It was a window to a world starkly different from his own, one where meritocracy was a cruel joke, and success felt like a distant, unattainable mirage. Did he have the right to change her fate? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment was shattered as a debt collector appeared on her doorstep, a grim harbinger of troubles long concealed. Nathaniel's heart raced, the knowledge hitting him like a punch. Clara's burden unraveled before his eyes, a tidal wave crashing against his harvested success. Her struggle tugged at his sleeve. Should he help or retreat into his gilded cocoon? The gravity of her situation beckoned him, igniting a moral dilemma that paralyzed his mind. This wasn't just work. It was personal. This was a chance to confront the legacy of every hard-fought decision he had ever made. As he paced the street, uncertainty clawed at him. Could he, a man draped in privilege, offer the lifeline she desperately needed? He found himself spiraling deeper into anguish, feeling the weight of Clara's children's dreams resting on his shoulders. What price would he pay? The stakes had escalated, but the outcome remained agonizingly unclear. Whatever path he chose would ripple across their lives, life and success as he knew them, trembling on the edge of a knife. Thus, as Nathaniel stood at this crossroads, a single thought haunted him. Would he step into Clara's light, or remain caged in his own shadows? Heart pounding, Nathaniel wrestled with a decision that felt monumental, the gravity of Clara's struggles pulling him from the comfortable detachment of his life. The silhouettes of towering skyscrapers contrasted with Clara's unassuming existence, each designed rectangle a reminder of what he'd achieved at the cost of community and connection. What good was wealth if it alienated him from the lives of others? With hands clenched into fists, he envisioned the impact of his choice. He could approach Clara, extend a hand, and risk intrusion deeply into her life. But what if she recoiled, viewing him as a savior, or, worse yet, a patronizing billionaire? It was a reality he hadn't anticipated, an awakening that rattled his sense of entitlement. Staring at the comforting glow of his office lights from a distance, he saw them as a false sun illuminating his hollow victory. Nathaniel understood, for the first time, that success without purpose felt like a betrayal of his own potential. He craved authenticity, not just the accolades gathered in boardrooms and conferences. But how could he reconcile that yearning with the fear of crossing boundaries? As the wind chilled his skin, thoughts of Clara's laughter filled the cracks of his conviction. The ease with which she navigated obstacles, veering from joy to stress in a heartbeat, both inspired and terrified him. Nathaniel couldn't dismiss her plight. In that moment, he resolved that staying ignorant would be the greatest tragedy of all. If he truly wanted to step into the light, he needed to expose himself to the very shadows he had so carefully avoided. Fueled by a mix of determination and trepidation, Nathaniel headed home, each step flavored with the urgency of initiative. He fired off an email to Clara, inviting her for coffee to discuss her recent design ideas, pretending it was strictly professional. Formulating the words felt awkward, like donning a costume that didn't quite fit. Would she read between the lines? Could he disguise his newfound resolve with the safety of corporate disguise? The next morning draped Chicago in a fresh sheen, and the soft hum of the coffee shop provided a cocoon of warmth as he waited. The anticipation gnawing at him felt like a live wire. He couldn't help but wonder what Clara would reveal about herself if she knew that he had been watching, studying. How comfortable would she feel with him if he stepped out from behind his corporate mask? When Clara walked in, a coffee cup cradled in her hands, the light of day reflected off her gentle features, yet her eyes bore the weight of invisible burdens. Nathaniel stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. It felt wrong to sit behind the desk he'd so meticulously curated when facing her. "Thank you for coming," he started, his voice betraying an undercurrent of vulnerability. "I really wanted to talk about your projects." Conversing about projects felt like a flimsy cover, a way to avoid the raw honesty bubbling just beneath the surface. As Clara shared, her passion coursed through her words, illuminating every crevice of her identity. He could sense her desire to express herself in ways limited by circumstance. Yet, as she spoke, Nathaniel's mind wandered to the debt collector at her door, the crushing reality lingering in the air between them. He would need a plan to help, one that wouldn't alienate her or make her feel obligated. He wanted to offer a bridge, not a handout, and that required nuance, patience, and trust. But time slipped away like grains of sand. Nathaniel's resolve to be the light in her darkness solidified. The discussion would organically lead to deeper questions, and he would need to tackle the personal turmoil that rippled beneath her surface. As Clara's laughter danced among woven threads of adversity and aspiration, Nathaniel boldly considered if he was ready to redefine not just her path, but his own. The stakes were no longer confined to his corporate empire. They reached into the core of who he was, forging a new identity in the fires of vulnerability. But would Clara welcome him into that close circle, or reject him as another figure vying for a piece of her dreams? Though the coffee was hot, Nathaniel felt chilled. The conversation, once so simple, suddenly teetered on the brink of revelation, and one wrong move could shatter everything. The moment hung thick with unspoken truths, waiting for the sound of clarity to break the silence. The tension in the air thickened as Clara leaned forward, an eager fire igniting in her eyes. Nathaniel braced himself, acutely aware that each word she spoke had the potential to unravel the resolve he had just summoned. Clara shared her vision for a community project, a mural intended to celebrate both the struggles and triumphs of local artists. "It's not just art," she said, her voice imbued with passion. "It's a way for people to tell their stories, to be seen." Nathaniel found himself captivated. But beneath her enthusiasm lay the undercurrents of her reality. The debts, the pressure of survival, the silent fight against a system that often favored the privileged. He felt a pang of guilt for all he had taken for granted, wrapped in his world of privilege and success. A world that seemed so distant from Clara's daily battles. How had he let that happen? Grappling with the enormity of what she shared, Nathaniel's analytical mind raced to stitch together a plan, a way he could support her without suffocating her vision. He would need to consider not just his resources, but her feelings, instincts finely tuned from a lifetime of self-reliance. "What if we could collaborate?" he suggested, voice steady, yet vulnerable. "I could help secure funding, make this mural happen in a big way." The moment Clara's eyes narrowed, questioning his intentions, ripples of self-doubt cascaded through him. Did he sound like another philanthropist trying to impose his will? The last thing he wanted was to invoke a feeling of indebtedness. "I just think you have something incredible here," he continued, mind teetering between ambition and trepidation. "I want to help build something that's yours, not mine." Silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the low murmur of conversations swirling around them. Clara's expression morphed, indecision clouding her features. The weight of her circumstances hung heavily in the space that should have been filled with excitement. And there it was, the emotional distance between them amplified, as he recognized her fear of vulnerability, anxious to protect her dreams from a world that had often shown her its ruthless side. "Funding is just a band-aid," Clara replied, her voice steadier now. "What if I try to take this leap but I fall? It's already terrifying to dream, Nathaniel." He could feel the shadows of her doubts creeping into the conversing space. Her words reverberated in his mind, pushing him to consider his own fears. Would he be able to steer their partnership beyond financial independence into a realm of genuine connection? They both stood on precipices of their own making. He, a millionaire with a burgeoning appendage of empathy. She, an artist tethered by circumstance yet undeterred in spirit. "Nobody's asking you to take a leap on my behalf," Nathaniel said firmly, though the honesty in his voice revealed a flicker of doubt. "This is about pooling our strengths. It's a risk, yes, but risk can lead to growth. I've faced it my whole life in business. Perhaps it's time we both step out of our comfort zones." His words hung between them, sparking something deeper, an unarticulated truth only they could dissect. Clara studied him, her gaze piercing as if attempting to decipher whether he was a phantom determined to haunt her ambitions or a steadfast ally ready to shoulder the weight of their collective anxieties. It was a crucial moment, one that demanded clarity and courage from both of them. Just as Nathaniel felt the potential for understanding solidifying, a ring of his phone shattered the fragile atmosphere. He glanced down at the screen, a name flashing against the backdrop of his budding reality. His business partner needed him, but did he want to slip back into that world of concrete ambitions and sterile values? Reflecting on his priorities, he inhaled deeply, realizing that there was another path tugging at him, one that could vastly transform both of their lives. Nathaniel's mind whirled as he wrestled with duty versus authenticity, needing to forge a new identity built on awareness and intention. He couldn't ignore the call, nor could he sidestep the urgency present in Clara's desire for validation. As he considered abandoning the conversation for corporate obligations, he felt one of the starkest dilemmas of his life press upon him. How much was he willing to risk in pursuit of true connection and transformation? "Clara," he finally said, mustering all the earnestness he could pour into the words, "let's make a pact." The steeliness in her eyes sparked with intrigue. What kind of pact? Yet before he could articulate his thoughts, the echoes of his corporate obligations loomed large, threatening to extinguish the flame of possibility they had just ignited. Would he maintain this fragile bond with Clara, risking everything for an uncertain future? Or retract, retreating to the safety of his established life? The seconds stretched, and his next words could alter the trajectory of their lives irrevocably. The decision loomed, a moment that could define him and potentially Clara in ways they couldn't yet fathom. Nathaniel's heartbeat quickened, drowning out the ambient noise of the cafe. The stakes had escalated beyond mere funding. His offer proposed a shared journey into uncharted territory. "Let's pledge to support each other," he began, words tumbling out with a blend of urgency and sincerity. "Something beyond business. A commitment to help each other grow, both personally and professionally." Clara searched his face, trying to disentangle the threads of sincerity from the habit of corporate politeness. But there it was, buried beneath layers of hesitance and fear, an opportunity that resonated with her innate desire for authenticity. The challenge before her was not just accepting help, but also the vulnerability that came with collaboration. "You mean a partnership?" she asked, her voice a whisper tinged with incredulity. "Not just an agreement on a project," he clarified, his conviction solidifying, "but a true collaboration where we both influence the direction and purpose. I can provide funding, yes, but it's also about ideas. You tell the stories. I'll learn how to listen." As Nathaniel spoke, he could sense that they were each at a precipice. He, used to the efficient machinations of the corporate world. She, familiar with the raw, unfiltered essence of art. It struck him that they were both, in their own ways, seeking a break from their respective norms. He had become a prisoner of his own success, while she fought daily to be free from the shackles of her reality. Clara's brow knitted in contemplation. She wrestled with her instincts. The fear of failure didn't merely linger. It hovered like a dark cloud ready to burst. "And if it doesn't work out? What if I can't deliver?" she countered, crossing her arms defensively. "What if my fear keeps me from living up to whatever potential you think I have?" The rawness of her emotion resonated deeply within Nathaniel. He had made his career by downplaying risks, forging paths where success felt like a mere calculation. "Then we adapt," he said, his tone tempered by a newfound gentleness. "Failure doesn't mean the end of your worth or talent. It's part of the process. I've failed countless times. That's a reason I am who I am today." For the first time, Clara cracked a small smile, albeit fleeting. "You think your failures shaped you?" "Absolutely. It forged my resilience, my willingness to keep adapting. I didn't just stumble into success. I learned at each juncture. Let's create a space together where we learn from each other," he said. Nathaniel felt a rush of hope energizing him, but he also recognized that this moment was intimidating for both of them. Their previous barriers began to blend into something mellower. Clara's boldness in sharing her vision juxtaposed with the cautious openness in Nathaniel, synthesized into something potentially transformative. "Okay," she replied slowly, an edge of excitement creeping into her voice. "I'll take that chance if you will. But can we both promise to agree on one thing? Honesty. No pretenses. It's the only way we can truly live up to what we can create." "Deal," he agreed, relief washing over him like a balm. Mutual honesty grounded their commitment, a stark contrast to the business negotiations he was used to, where facades often ruled. This was different. However, as exhilaration surged through Nathaniel, it was laced with a profound realization. The notion of building something authentic from the ground up challenged everything he believed about business. Could he truly visualize the collaboration without slipping back into corporate tendencies? The deeper he ventured into this territory with Clara, the more he realized how personal investment required recalibrating his definitions of success. Before they could embrace this paradigm shift fully, the cafe door swung open, a blast of cool air signaling the entrance of his business partner, Tom. The vibrant atmosphere dimmed slightly, his presence a reminder of Nathaniel's duality, the responsibilities and expectations from the world he was beginning to see more clearly. "Hey, Nathaniel, we need to talk about that merger," Tom called, locking eyes with him. The air thrummed with a peculiar tension, cutting through the momentum Nathaniel had embraced with Clara. In that moment, Nathaniel's internal conflict crystallized. Would he allow Tom's intrusion to dictate his direction back to the familiar, or would he find a way to navigate both worlds? Clara's gaze held his, unspoken support sparking with possibility. The duality of his existence pressed upon him again. He could tether himself to the past or leap forward into a brave, uncertain future. "Hold on, Tom," he said finally, his voice steady as he turned towards Clara. "Let's not end this right now." Everything hung in the balance. The choice he needed to make loomed large, demanding his commitment to a new narrative that could either free him or bind him tighter to his already defined path. What would he decide as the echo of Tom's call became a reality he couldn't ignore? Nathaniel's decision hung heavy in the air, a palpable weight that felt both exhilarating and suffocating. He turned back to Clara, their eyes locking in a moment that felt timeless. "I want to hear more about your vision," he said, willing himself to prioritize this connection over the familiar demands of the corporate realm. Clara's brow furrowed with surprise, and then softened into a tentative grin. "Really? You want to hear about my work?" "Absolutely," Nathaniel replied, apprehension clawing at his throat, but determination keeping his voice steady. "After all, this isn't just about funding. It's about creating something together. Share your passion." As Clara began to speak, her initial hesitation melted away, each word flowing with newfound confidence. She painted vivid scenes of her art, creative expressions that captivated her spirit and highlighted injustices she yearned to expose. Nathaniel found himself drawn in, captivated by her passion. The usual corporate metrics faded into the background. It was intoxicating. The way she spoke, her hands emphasizing each point like a conductor guiding a symphony, brought life to the very ideas he had once only dissected in boardrooms. He felt a stirring within himself, an awakening of a curiosity long subdued by spreadsheets and profit margins. But as he listened, a nagging doubt began to creep back in. The responsibilities of his job felt as real as the energy sparking between them. How could he navigate this new territory while keeping the demands of the business afloat? Faced with the uncertainty of intertwining their ambitions, he sensed a rift developing within him. "Clara, what if your art doesn't resonate with the market?" Nathaniel asked, taking a calculated risk to probe into her fears. He needed to know whether she could withstand the pressures that often crushed creative souls in favor of commercial viability. What if it's too niche or avant-garde? Clara paused, her expression momentarily shadowed by doubt. "I guess there's always that risk," she admitted, her vulnerability laid bare. "But isn't that the essence of creating? To put yourself out there, even if it means facing rejection?" Nathaniel pondered her words, recognizing the inherent challenge they posed. While Clara was urging him toward authenticity, a reminder of the guardrails he had erected around himself loomed large. It echoed his own fears of failing to embody this newfound commitment. "I get that," he replied, his voice low and contemplative. "But let's acknowledge the potential fallout. What if I don't have the right resources to support your vision? This isn't just about enthusiasm." "Then let's figure it out together," she pressed, her unwavering gaze fixing him in place. "We can navigate this partnership as a team. Trust in both of us." Nathaniel's heart raced in response, her conviction igniting an internal battle. The rational part of him weighed the risks against the tantalizing allure of true collaboration. Yet fear threatened to hold him back. The threatening shadow cast by Tom's arrival was a reminder that failure in his world had immediate consequences. Glancing at Tom, who was still outside, hands jammed carelessly into his pockets, Nathaniel could feel the urgency of the moment. But what if thrown into the mix? This endeavor jeopardizes everything I've built. It was a question steeped in anxiety, laying bare his deepest conflict. "Maybe this is exactly what you need," Clara replied, a hint of challenge in her tone. "You've been meticulously building a career, but have you ever built something meaningful?" Her words struck like a lightning bolt, igniting a sense of recognition. The corporate empire he was part of felt increasingly empty without passion, without risk. The dichotomy of being an entrepreneur weighed him down, pulling him in opposite directions. The lure of safety and the thrill of risk. Nathaniel stared into Clara's eyes, and for the first time, he resolved to answer the most pressing question haunting him. What would he sacrifice to pursue authenticity? The tension reached a crescendo as he felt the pull toward something greater, something transformative. "All right, Clara," he said quietly, but with conviction. "Let's move forward, together. Let's reshape this journey, for ourselves." With the weight of his decision echoing in his mind, Nathaniel suddenly sensed Tom's presence looming closer, a stark reminder of the complexities ahead. He took a deep breath, readying himself to confront not only Tom, but also the echoes of his own fears. While Clara looked on, sentiment radiating from her features, Nathaniel steeled himself for the impending conflict. The choice to market the vulnerability might unleash a storm neither of them was ready for, but it felt vital to embrace this reckoning. How do I explain this to Tom? He thought, uncertainty clawing back in with renewed vigor. In the next moment, a dialogue with Tom could either entrench him deeper into the mundane world or pull him into the exhilarating unknown with Clara. There was no turning back now. Would he slip back into the comfort of his old standards? Or would this collaboration manifest into a profound shift? The air was charged with anticipation as their fates intertwined. Clarity mingled with uncertainty, and with that, a new chapter awaited. The question lingered. Would Nathaniel have the courage to redefine his existence in the wake of this awakening? Nathaniel sensed the shift the moment Tom stepped inside the cafe. The air crackled with unresolved tension, the kind that heralded contention, and he found himself momentarily paralyzed. Clara wore an encouraging smile, but Nathaniel could feel the weight of the impending confrontation pressing against his chest. "Where have you been?" Tom asked, his tone laced with annoyance, as he came to a halt at their table, eyeing Nathaniel and then Clara. "I thought we were supposed to discuss the merger." "We are," Nathaniel replied, forcing a calmness he didn't quite feel. He exchanged a glance with Clara, who provided a quiet nod, urging him forward. "Actually, there's something else we need to talk about," Nathaniel continued, feeling the words tumble from his mouth before he completely registered the impact they might carry. The reality of his decision to collaborate with Clara was looming larger than ever. Tom's brows furrowed, clearly disconcerted. "What are you talking about?" "I've been considering our priorities, and I think we may need to diversify what this company represents. Embracing creativity and social causes could be part of our next step," Nathaniel asserted, each syllable grounding him further into conviction. Tom crossed his arms, his demeanor shifting from disbelief to confrontation. "This is about business, Nathaniel. You know what the shareholders want. Your newfound interest in art isn't going to cut it." The clash of perspectives sent ripples of doubt through Nathaniel, yet Clara's unwavering stare brought him back. "But to be successful long-term, we need to connect with our audience on a meaningful level," he countered, his voice steadying as he spoke. "What is a merger if it lacks purpose?" Tom scoffed, shaking his head. "You're playing with fire. You're going to jeopardize everything you've built for some pie-in-the-sky dream?" His words were sharp, eyes narrowing with skepticism. "What's next? Funding a mural in the middle of downtown?" "Yes," Nathaniel said, surprising even himself. "If that mural tells a story that resonates with people, then yes, that's exactly what I'm suggesting." A sense of exhilaration surged within him as the words hung in the air, infused with an urgency that felt liberating. "Are you serious?" Tom laughed, disbelief turning his face a shade redder. "Think about your career, Nathaniel. You're not just some idealist, you have responsibilities." Those words struck deep. Responsibilities. Nathaniel had spent years juggling the weight of expectations, conforming to a path laid out for him by others. Suddenly, They felt more stifling than protective. It was not just about the revenues anymore. It was about forging a legacy, something real, something that mattered. "I am serious," Nathaniel declared, his resolve hardening. "It's time for a shift, not just for the company, but for me. If I'm going to lead, I want to lead with authenticity." Clara's eyes sparkled with admiration and encouragement, a stark contrast to Tom's displeasure. It was a conflict of worlds, the pursuit of ideals versus hard-nosed corporate realities. As Nathaniel witnessed their standoff, he felt the keen pulse of his own transformation. Each heartbeat echoed the path forward, fraught with challenges, but brimming with potential. "You think you can make these changes without risking everything?" Tom challenged again, his voice low and slippery with tension. "What will this cost you?" "As much as it needs to," Nathaniel replied, surprising himself again. "But I need to know if you're on board with this vision, Tom, or if I need to be willing to make that sacrifice for something deeper." Tom's expression darkened, and the silence stretched. As Nathaniel studied the room, he recognized the emotional stakes were high, higher than he had anticipated. Could he really be prepared to face not only Tom's opposition, but the potential disruption to his career that lay ahead? The air felt electric as he awaited Tom's response, uncertain but resolute. Would his decision lead to professional isolation, or could it be the catalyst for change? The moment clung to the edge of uncertainty, and Nathaniel could almost hear the ticking of a clock, each passing second driving him closer to a pivotal choice. As Tom opened his mouth to speak, Nathaniel braced himself for whatever revelation would emerge, sensing this was only the beginning of a much larger journey. What new truths would unfold, and what price would Nathaniel truly pay to unlock his authentic self? The prolonged silence finally shattered as Tom spoke, his voice a restrained hiss that cut through the cafe's ambient hum. "This is a terrible idea, Nathaniel. You're going to screw everything up for all of us." Staring into Tom's narrowing eyes, Nathaniel felt the initial surge of adrenaline mix with apprehension. What if Tom was right? What if aligning the company with art, creativity, and social issues wasn't only ill-timed, but counterproductive? But then, a memory flashed, standing in front of that mural, overwhelmed by the stories it told, the souls it touched. He knew this was more than a corporate maneuver. It was a vision. "I'm prepared to take the risk," Nathaniel stated, forcing clarity into the chaos of his emotions. "Risk is part of growth, Tom." The conviction in his voice felt foreign yet empowering. For the first time, Nathaniel could feel his core desires, creativity, connection, and purpose, aligning with his professional aspirations. Tom leaned in, intensity flashing across his face. "And what if you end up losing everything? This isn't a game. You won't get a second chance for your career." Each word resonated with fears he had kept hidden. He had often wondered if he was merely a spectator in his own life, ignoring the stirring inside him that yearned to manifest something more significant. "I can't keep playing it safe," Nathaniel replied, his voice now steadier. "You don't get to define what my success looks like. Part of being a leader is stepping into the unknown." The assertion felt as liberating as it did risky. He resolved to articulate the implications boldly. Tom's frustration simmered visibly, and for a moment, Nathaniel thought he might back down. Instead, Tom straightened, projecting a false calm. "If you think this is the right move, you'll stand alone. Count me out of this idealistic mess." With those words, Tom turned on his heel and strode away, leaving an electrified silence in his wake. The cafe's noise swelled back around Nathaniel, and he exhaled slowly, acknowledging the weight of responsibility that just landed squarely on his shoulders. Clara's gaze held a mixture of admiration and concern, encouraging him to reflect. "Nathaniel, are you prepared for this? You could be walking away from a lot, and it's not just Tom. The board will not be pleased either." Nodding, he felt the gravity of her words. The certainty that had surged through him felt tethered to an undeniable tension, Doubt lurked just beneath the surface. Could he convince the board of this potential transformation? Would they support a departure from their long-standing business model? "I have to try," he said, a whisper almost drowned out by the sounds of the cafe. "I can't ignore the possibility anymore. I want to create something meaningful." Clara considered him for a moment before speaking. "Then let's make it happen together. Your perspective is valuable. We'll need a plan, something tangible that showcases the benefits of this new direction." Nathaniel's adrenaline surged once more, diving into the reality of the task ahead. This wasn't just about him. This was about redefining the essence of a company he had built his name on. With determination solidifying within, he transitioned into a strategic mindset. Pulling out his notebook, Nathaniel began jotting down ideas. What if we start with a community event that integrates local artists? It could illustrate how creativity enhances business while fostering connections. Clara's face lit up. Exactly. It anchors your vision with practical steps. If we can generate interest and present engaging narratives, we can sway the board. As they mapped out potential collaborations, Nathaniel felt the stirrings of something he had long suppressed. Passion, igniting purpose. He envisioned not just a merger, but a powerful evolution that could resonate beyond margins and balance sheets. The realization that he was ready to fight for this vision invigorated him, yet shadows of doubt still lingered, taunting him with concerns of potential failure. By the time they finished outlining their initial thoughts, it was nearly closing time. They stood, sharing a determined glance that had shifted from a mere acknowledgement of risk to the thrill of shared ambition. But as Nathaniel exited the cafe, a gnawing feeling of uncertainty returned. Tom's last words echoed in his mind. What would it truly cost him to pursue this new path? Was he risking just his career? Or was there far more at stake? As he walked into the twilight, the questions loomed larger than ever. Would he be ready to face not just professional obstacles, but a deeper reckoning with himself? The clock was ticking, not just for the merger, but for his transformation. And he felt the pressure building toward an inevitable confrontation. What awaited him next? The moment of truth was approaching, and Nathaniel could sense the impending tide of change. The next morning, Nathaniel woke to a mind still spinning from the previous day's confrontation. It wasn't just Tom's dismissal that gnawed at him, but the unsettling challenge of his own commitment. With each tick of the clock, doubt echoed louder. Wasn't risk a two-edged sword? The persistent uncertainty crept into his thoughts, weaving itself through plans he'd envisioned bursting with promise. He dressed methodically, a ritual meant to bolster confidence. Each button fastened on his shirt felt like a choice he was making, a decision to present himself as a leader stepping into uncharted territory. The mirror reflected a man transformed by purpose and uncertainty alike. Today, he would not only propose his vision, but also stake his claim, an act of faith not just in the company, but in himself. As he stepped into the office, a familiar buzz filled the space, employees on their phones and typing away. The usual ambiance felt charged. The stakes were palpably higher. Nathaniel's resolve tightened. Today, he would present a prototype of his vision, one that intertwined creativity with profitability, an invitation to the board not just to listen, but to believe. Clara met him at the door to the conference room, her expression a mixture of encouragement and anxiety. "You ready?" she asked, her voice tinged with anticipation. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied, releasing a slow breath that echoed his determination. He couldn't afford to let his pace falter now. Walking into the conference room, Nathaniel glanced at the board members seated around the table, each face a mask of skepticism. He caught Tom's eye, a flash of defiance passing between them. This was a moment that required clarity amid the noise of doubt. He positioned himself at the head of the table, began speaking, with conviction fueled by both fear and excitement. "Today we stand at a crossroads where creativity meets business innovation," he began, presenting a carefully curated PowerPoint. I propose an initiative that not only enhances our company profile, but also enriches our community connections through art and creativity. The initial silence met his words, but Nathaniel could feel every gaze weighing his proposal against the reality of their world. Visuals rolled through the slides, concepts of art installations, collaborations with local artists, and statistics that hinted at the immense potential of engaging with creative initiatives. But skepticism surfaced quickly. What if this diverts our focus from core operations? One board member interrupted, his brows knit tightly with concern. Nathaniel pressed forward, feeling the heat of scrutiny. What if we're limiting our evolution? What if embracing innovation and art can transform our brand into something that resonates profoundly with both our market and employees? The back and forth was rough, but Nathaniel sensed a shift. The weight of his sincerity began to cut through the hesitations, even slightly. Clara chimed in, expertly supporting his vision with data points that highlighted successful, similar ventures in their industry. Interest sparked. He could see it in their faces, tiny glimmers of contemplation surfacing in response to their rhetorical dance. But an uncomfortable heartbeat of panic threatened to destabilize his confidence. What if their acceptance hinged on a misconceived idea of creativity as merely decorative, lacking true value? Was he prepared to defend it when the room inevitably turned critical? As discussions progressed toward potential timelines and implementation strategies, Nathaniel felt the tug of hope and apprehension. Hopes of a breakthrough relied upon him guiding this turbulent ship toward productive waters. The passions he had unearthed previously flickered to life within him, creating an undeniable current. Before the meeting adjourned, the board chair addressed him directly, crossing arms over her chest. You've presented a strong argument, Nathaniel, but this hinges on conversion risks. We need to see how this will influence our bottom line significantly. His heart raced, but he understood the confrontation. It wasn't merely a challenge of an idea. It was a probing into the heart of who he was becoming. He took a deep breath as possibilities unfolded, unshackling themselves in his mind. I propose we launch a pilot initiative. Let's choose one local artist and a small project. We'll gauge its impact and feedback before making a larger commitment, Nathaniel asserted, accuracy rooted in choice, conviction ringing as clear as a bell. As the meeting concluded, anticipation lingered in the air, his proposal embraced amidst caution. But in the stillness, a fleeting thought intruded. Was this a step toward success, or merely an illusion of progress, dancing too closely to oblivion? Leaving the room, Nathaniel felt elated, yet the specter of doubt thrummed beneath his bravado. Could his determination withstand the scrutiny? Would he navigate the murky waters ahead without losing himself? The moment of clarity had arrived, with consequences still looming like dark clouds on the horizon. The stakes were escalating. What awaited him next was not just a business shift, but a personal expedition into depths he barely understood. The unfolding drama sparked within him an insatiable urge. Could he transform the doubts into weapons of success, or would he continue to grapple with the shadows of himself? The time had come to face not only the board, but his own breadth of ambition. The follow-up of Nathaniel's proposal echoed in his mind long after he left the conference room. He felt the weight of his own expectations settling heavily on his shoulders. Despite the cautious optimism that had seeped into the board's approval of the pilot project, his self-doubt flickered ominously, like a candle waving in the wind. In the soft illumination of his office, Nathaniel stared at his reflection in the glass window. The city's skyline nuzzled against the fading light, mirroring the blurring boundaries of his own ambitions. A spark of inspiration flashed, urging him to get moving. Each wedded thought was a step toward unleashing a torrent of creativity he yearned to explore, a way to engage that hidden part of his personality he had long neglected. He initiated the process of researching potential local artists, scouring galleries and social media with fierce determination. The vibrancy of the creative community around him stirred something profound within. It challenged him to look beyond the corporate ladder and embrace risk as a necessary companion on his journey. Collaborating with talented artists didn't just ignite professional objectives, it felt liberating on a personal level, a rejection of the boxish confines of corporate lethargy. Night after night, Nathaniel poured his energy into this newfound crusade, juggling spreadsheets one moment and email chains with eager artists and designers the next. As he immersed himself, pieces of art began to take shape in his mind, each more daring than the last. Every interaction ignited a rush of possibility, plucking at strands of his identity he had forgotten existed. But, as he dug deeper, a persistent anxiety loomed. What if he approached this endeavor with too much idealism? The pragmatism that had once guided him in the corporate wilderness gnawed at his thoughts. Would this creative venture jeopardize his stability? Could it ultimately become his undoing, another mark on his already fluctuating endurance as a leader? Those questions left echoes of vulnerability. He could practically feel his resolve breaking under the pressure. The real breakthrough occurred one afternoon when an email landed in his inbox. A local artist interested in meeting to discuss a collaborative piece. Nathaniel's heart quickened at the prospect. This was the moment both he and Clara had envisioned. His enthusiasm soared, yet as preparations began, he wrestled with the weight of the moment. A day before the meeting, Nathaniel paced through his apartment, rehearsing his approach. The anxiety spiraled, forcing him to confront a cold, stark truth. He was no longer just defending an idea before the board. He was about to expose himself artistically, a leap into vulnerability he had resisted his whole life. Arriving at the gallery, Nathaniel felt the energy shift around him. Colors exploded on canvas, emotions embedded in brushstrokes, beckoning him to drop the corporate mask he'd clung to. Breaking through his initial apprehension, he struck up a conversation with the artist, digging into the layers of her work, unraveling the difficulties of her journey in the art world. Their shared stories renovated something within him, a nuance he had suppressed, urging him toward authenticity. As their dialogue wove in and out, Nathaniel began to recognize in her struggles aspects of himself that he had long concealed. Fear of failure, the urge to please others, a longing for validation, all furnaces fueling his relentless pursuit for professional success. He couldn't help but see mirrored reflections of his own dilemmas in her creative narrative, binding them together through their vulnerabilities. After their meeting concluded, Nathaniel lingered in the gallery, considering his next steps. His heart raced with newfound determination, but a crushing doubt still infiltrated his resolve. Was he ready for this dual existence as a corporate figure and an artistic ally? The impending pilot project would either deepen his commitment to both realms or expose him to unprecedented levels of scrutiny. He felt perched on the precipice, caught between ambition and authenticity. Could he foster a genuine connection between art and business, or would this venture drive him to collapse under the weight of expectation? As he left the gallery, the weight of uncharted waters ahead descended once again. The coming days loomed like monolithic shadows, yet within him also stirred a trace of excitement, a tempest of potential waiting to unleash, igniting an insatiable need for fulfillment that was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. The next phase of this journey awaited him, marked by a single question that echoed in the back of his mind. Was he truly prepared to risk it all to explore the deeper dimensions of who he was meant to become? Weeks passed, and as the pilot project unfolded, Nathaniel's excitement swirled with trepidation. Each artist collaboration felt like breathing life into a dormant part of himself that had been stifled by the cold precision of corporate expectation. The first mural launch had drawn the public's attention, but more importantly, it had ignited his sense of self and purpose. Clara's visionary ideas thrived alongside his support, blending to create something uniquely impactful, a canvas that resonated with the stories of the community. Standing outside the freshly painted mural on the day of its unveiling, Nathaniel felt a surge of pride wash over him. This mural wasn't merely an art piece. It was an embodiment of connection, creativity, and passion, elements he had long neglected in his pursuit of wealth. Children laughed and pointed, their eyes alight with wonder as they absorbed the powerful imagery that adorned the wall. Clara flanked him, her expression a mix of satisfaction and disbelief at how far they had come. "Look at what we've created," she beamed, motioning towards the mural. "This isn't just about art. It's a voice for our community." Nathaniel smiled, each pulse of inspiration and joy echoing in the tumults of his heart. "This is only the beginning," he replied, the magnitude of their achievement igniting a fresh surge of ambition. "I can't remember the last time I felt this alive." As he basked in the illuminative joy of their work, he recognized a transformation that echoed beyond the physical, delving into the very core of who he had become. He had shifted from a man defined by financial prowess to one measured by purpose and connection. The realization was monumental. He was now committed to nurturing both his business instincts and his artistic inclinations. That evening, he received a flurry of emails from board members and stakeholders, thankful for the positive reception the mural had garnered. For the first time, the messages were not about numbers or projections. They were about the impact, the heart, and the resonance of creativity within the corporate realm. Nathaniel read each note with renewed vigor, his fear of failure dissipating as validation wrapped around him. A silent acknowledgement that he could indeed align profitability with purpose. Buoyed by the success, he initiated another meeting with the board, this time armed not just with ideas, but palpable evidence of the effect their new direction had on the company's standing in the community. As the board listened, captivated by the narrative he painted, one that threaded together creativity and commerce, a powerful confidence swelled within Nathaniel. They began to see him not as a man teetering on the edge of danger, but as a visionary leading a movement toward meaningful connections. The moment of truth had arrived, and Nathaniel felt ready. "This mural represents more than just art. It's a commitment we can extend to our community," he proclaimed. "People crave authenticity and connection. We have the power to ignite that yearning and benefit from it commercially. Let's build the next phase of our mission around it." Their tentative nods and approving murmurs began to solidify into something tangible, an acceptance of the new course he envisioned. One by one, the board voiced their support, amazed by the revenue generated from the increased community engagement. Their reservations faded as Nathaniel exuded a confidence sourced from true personal transformation. In that moment, he stood not just as a man who held a title, but as a leader shaped by authentic experiences. The tapestry of his journey was woven with the threads of vulnerability and risk, transforming every misstep into lessons learned and triumphs celebrated. Days turned into weeks, and the true impact of their mission became evident. Collaborations flourished, and the community rallied behind them, artists finding platforms to express their stories, transforming the superficial into a tapestry rich with depth. Various initiatives arose from their partnership, outreach events, workshops, and creative showcases, fostering a sense of ownership and pride. With each successful event, Nathaniel saw more than just numbers on a balance sheet. He felt the pulse of a community coming alive, breathing meaning into their existence. Nathaniel gained recognition beyond his title. He was lauded not merely for financial prowess, but as a catalyst for social transformation. Clara approached him after one of the events, a radiant smile illuminating her face. "You've really changed everything, Nathaniel. Your leadership has given people hope to believe in themselves again." A warmth spread through him as he reflected on his journey. "I've learned that real growth happens when we embrace our vulnerabilities. I couldn't have done this without you. Together, we've forged something that resonates beyond our individual selves." The sincerity of Nathaniel's words filled Clara with a sense of shared fulfillment. They shared a moment of understanding, a silent acknowledgement of how far they had come and the heights yet to be scaled. Now, standing on solid ground, he felt not just a sense of connection with Clara and their vibrant community, but fulfillment beyond measure. A profound transition from isolation within safety to a collaborative awakening bursting with life. Nathaniel had proven to himself that financial success meant little without purpose to sustain it. In this space of triumph, bathed in color, creativity, and community, He conquered not just his fears, but emerged as the embodiment of his aspirations, manifesting something authentic he could wear with pride. The realization that individual growth was the most significant accomplishment of all. He had become a leader not only in business, but more importantly, in lives touched. A narrative unfolding with every brushstroke on the walls of their shared vision. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Nathaniel glanced toward the mural one last time, its vibrancy reflecting the fire within him. This was fulfillment. This was achievement. A true marker of growth bridging both the personal and professional worlds. He took a deep, satisfying breath, ready for whatever came next. A journey filled with genuine connection, endless possibilities, and purposeful impact. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know how important it is to uplift the channel through these actions.